So there's one other thing that I forgot to mention about shortening the drive shaft. Explain it real quick. Basically, when you do shorten the drive shaft, oh yeah, and I filled this thing with oil, basically till it was dripping, as you can see. But when you shorten the drive shaft, basically what it's going to come down to, not what it comes down to, when you're shortening it, before you like make the initial cut in that, draw yourself lines, straight lines with the body of the drive shaft the whole way, not the whole way, but like a good length down the drive shaft, so that you can see, you have a point of reference to tell you where exactly it is that you need to try to make it straight. I forgot to mention that, and that definitely helps a lot in the process to get you lined up approximately where you need to be. By the way, my drain plug for this transmission, since I just did it, I have a 3/8 hex head here and it fit perfectly, so there you go. So, had a little bit of a problem. Basically my clutch fork or something, it wasn't doing what it needed to do. I had everything in, I thought I was ready to go, and I could not get the clutch to work the way that it needed to. And like, it was definitely bled. That wasn't the problem. I might have broke my master cylinder putting too much force on the clutch when it was bled and not engaging the shift fork the way it needed to. So I have a new slave cylinder. I got a new pivot ball and a new shift fork. Obviously that's the old one. I don't know that it's necessarily worn out, but that was part of our issue, was the whole thing wasn't actuating the way it needs to. So I threw about $100 in parts. Less than that, not 100. But I ordered some other stuff too to help me out. But I think the shift fork, this was a Dorman, I think it was like $30. The slave cylinder was also a Dorman. I think it was like $30-40. And then the pivot ball, I think, was an AC Delco. I'm not positive. I don't have packaging out here. AC Delco or Dorman, one of the two. But it was like $14-15. You gotta make sure you have your retaining clip because they don't come with those. But to put that pivot ball in, you obviously take the bell housing out, and it's a little hex screw back there. It's a, I believe, a 3/8. Yeah, 3/8 hex. And you just screw that in, and then you're gonna want to grease the shit out of that, and I'm going to before I put this in. But basically, to demonstrate this for you here, this guy rides in there, something like that, and the clutch pushes this outwards. So when you push the clutch pedal in, it causes the rod on the slave to push this guy back up this way to disengage the clutch, and then when you let off the clutch, it pushes it back out like that. So this throwout bearing goes in this orientation with, you want the fingers to be inside that collar, but you're gonna throw that throwout bearing in there, get everything put back together on this bell housing, throw it back on the transmission, and hopefully get it in with no problems. We're mating it back up to the engine. If you can see, my exhaust got bumped and completely took itself out, so I'm gonna have to fix that as well before I can drive this thing every day. So yeah, I got 2 bolts in the transmission and it's holding it in there. I made sure that the splines met up and everything, and it was together properly. So after that, and I got those bolts are in, made sure everything is the way it needs to be for the transmission, I went over the access port for the slave cylinder, and where there is a little hole, depending on your bell housing, there is a second style of bell housing that if I ever have to take this thing back out, probably what I'm gonna go to. It looks like there's a little bit more room to play with for getting the getting everything situated, and it has like a square port and then just like a little boot basically. I don't know if it's plastic or rubber, but it covers the clutch fork and like all that stuff. Depending on your application, it might be, you know, not the best choice. a rock or something could come up and hit it and smack that and break something. But for maintenance wise, I feel like that one would be a lot better. But anyhow, when you're putting that back together, also make sure to like grease the shit out of like the pivot ball and everything. I forgot to mention that earlier. But yeah, I went over there, and where the little hole is for the access, there's a plastic screw on this one. It's like a 15 mil. Took that out, and I stuck a pry bar in there. And I used the pry bar to check if the clutch was fighting me, which it was. It felt like there's a clutch there, and felt like what a pedal is like going, would feel like. Obviously, I'm pushing on a pry bar rather than a pedal, and I'm not using my feet, I'm using my hands with the pry bar, but like, you get the gist. If you were to push the clutch pedal in with your hand, that's like essentially what it would feel like. And so it feels good. So my next steps are, and I'm going to iterate that, I think when you're doing this, these are the smartest steps to take. I didn't do this the first time. I should have did this the first time. Obviously the cross member is out this time. It's a lot easier to get everything in and situated without the cross member. The engine here tilted back, and that's why as soon as it's Harley goes by, my engine tilted back in the mounts, which it didn't do the first time, but it did it this time, which is why my exhaust busted off, because the 2x4 I was using to hold it up just kind of, the other side's still on there because it was welded a lot better apparently. But yeah, this side fell off because the engine tilted, and due to the engine tilting, which I'm pretty sure it was designed to do so you could get the transmission in there easier, you have a lot more access to all of the bell housing bolts without having to fight basically the firewall and like the transmission tunnel and all that stuff getting in your way. So it's you get a lot better access to the transmission, the bell housing bolts, the way it is right now with the engine tilted slightly back. Obviously, as soon as you jack the transmission up and you put the cross member back under it, it goes back to a more level position, and you lose that great access to the bell housing bolts. So I'm going to put those bolts back in, then put the cross member under it. I'm not going to bolt the cross member in just yet, but I'm going to put the cross member under it to support it, and then I am going to put the new slave cylinder on. The one that was over there was dripping, even with that screw completely tight, so I'm going to assume that I did bust it. I am going to show you guys how to install the new slave cylinder as well. It's pretty simple. I'm going to go through bleeding it as well. Also, really simple. Hopefully my GoPro don't die while I'm trying to show you this, otherwise I'll have to re-record this. But this line here, putting the slave cylinder on, right? So basically what you have here is on this line, once you have the slave cylinder off, which to do that, there's a little pin that looks like this, sticking out one side. It'll obviously be bent over, and I'll show you that in a second. But you got to pull that pin out, and then this whole thing is ready to come off after you beat a roll pin out of this little hole, which I have that roll pin sticking out of. So I started it in there, just gave it a little tap. Didn't want it coming out of the hole on the other side, which, see in there, goes through the whole way through in there. And basically you push the line in, then send that roll pin through, and to make sure that roll pin through is what make sure the roll pin doesn't come out, can't English, is what this pin is for. It goes through the roll pin and you bend it back over to make sure that the roll pin can't back itself out, basically. But this O-ring is what keeps the system sealed. And so basically all you do is make sure that O-ring is good, replace it with one if you're replacing your slave cylinder, and then you're gonna force this thing in there pretty good. Then you're gonna, after you beat it in or force it in there, you beat this roll pin in, which I'm just gonna go ahead and get it started. You're gonna need a punch at some point, I believe, to get it, to make sure it's 100% across both sides. But you just put it in. And it's not a real big roll pin, so like it's not real difficult to get in. I gave it a little pull there to make sure it's in. And so I'm gonna have to get a little bit more in. But like I said, once that's actually in, all you do is put that pin through it and then bend these back over along the body of the slave cylinder. So once again, I didn't get a battery. Hopefully this thing don't die. But what I'm going to show you here is called gravity bleeding. And because these slave cylinders on these trucks, they have a bleed screw, but they don't have a nipple, so you can't just use a vacuum bleeder. I wish it was that simple. It's not. I went and tried to get things for brakes to fit these, couldn't find anything. Like maybe you could get one, but I don't know. I couldn't find one. So basically what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna open this guy, crack it open, and then I'm gonna go up top, take the cap off of the master cylinder, off the reservoir. And what you do is you slowly pour brake fluid in to make sure that, like, you don't want to let the master cylinder completely empty itself. So you keep brake fluid in it and just let it slowly drip out. And as it's doing that, it'll force all of the air to either go up or get pushed out as the fluid is coming down through. You do that 2 or 3 times with the master cylinder, and then you fill it up the whole way. And by the time you get about 30 seconds until, you know, it completely empties to, like, still an okay point, but like you don't want to let it get past there. So basically what you do, fill it 2-3 times, let it drain, and then the last time you do it, you fill it up completely, and that gives you like 30 seconds to get down here and close this. But by that time you ran two or three full basically reservoirs through it. It'll have everything flushed out and it'll be good to go. So basically I'm going to crack this open, go fill it, run a few through it, and then come back down and close this while it's still dripping, until I get down here to close this. Alright, I went and got a new battery for my GoPro. I actually have a bunch of them sitting here, so I won't have an issue with it dying again. But as you can see, like, you just bend those over, that's in. It took me like less than maybe one reservoir. Just take the cap off, have some fluid in there, undo the cap, you'll see it like slowly trickling down. And then if you loosen a little more, you know, you'll see it really start coming out, and it'll spit and bubble and whatever, and then it'll just start coming out as a stream. And at that point, you pretty much know you're good. I put a little bit more fluid in it, ran a little bit more through, but I wasn't seeing any bubbles. So we just tightened it back up, which I'm going to confirm 100% that it's tight. It certainly feels tight. So if it's bled, it's going to do its thing. When I engage the pedal, it should pop that plastic thing right off. And I am completely fine with doing it outside the transmission, because like I said, I don't want to put that plastic thing, have it in my bell housing, getting in there, potentially causing an issue for things. So I'm going to go push the pedal, and that plastic thing should, or at least the rod should push and do its thing. It might break the plastic thing. I don't know, maybe it won't. Maybe it'll just slide through. But either way, the slave will do something. So I'm going to go ahead and go push the pedal real quick. Alright, push the pedal. Should suck a little bit of fluid back in. Now, pedal isn't doing anything right now. Alright, I don't know if that's because the cylinder's still depressed. We're gonna go ahead and cut that off. Watch this thing spring to life. Pull this off. Slide these out. Come on. Alright, now that's like that. So now when I hit it, the pedal should be hard. Apparently not. Which tells me I've got a little air in the system still. Alright, I got the bleed screw barely open, so I'm gonna try pumping the pedal and then I'll put it back in its place and make sure that the reservoir is good. So if I could get the pedal to stay, I'll come down and close that before it does that. All right. So what we need to have happen is for fluid to come out with the pedal depressed, which it currently is. And crack this open. Coming to hang out, or like you being gay?
Bro, I just got off work.
Yeah, exactly.
Bro, there's liquid coming out.
I know, that's what
Is that what you want?
yeah, I'm trying to bleed the clutch.
Well, when do you know when you're done? How long have you been working on this thing?
A while.
Today?
Yeah. A few hours.
Wow, this looks like hell. What? There's just so much shit everywhere.
It's not hell, it's a day in the life.
As soon as I saw your hood up, I was like, bro's fucking working on his truck. And I had some woman behind me.
That's what I said. I said you got traffic behind you.
I didn't hear that.
Alright, so what I'm going to do now, if I can find one that doesn't have a bunch of junk on it, since my hands are covered in brake fluid, I'm going to take a 2x4 and depress the slave cylinder. And hopefully that should work out some of the bubbles. Alright, I lied again. So, what you want to do in order to bleed this, I just looked up a video to confirm 100%. So what you do is you want to have the slave compress. You fill it with fluid. You run it through a few reservoirs through it to get all the air out of the line. Then what you do is you take something to push on the slave cylinder and you let it fully extend and compress it a few times, and that should push the last little bit of air out of the slave cylinder. And then after you do that, once all the bubbles are out, then you should be able to go push your pedal to check to make sure that it's firm. So you don't mess with the clutch pedal until last, until you're pretty sure it's bled. So you don't have to mess with the clutch pedal at all to make sure it's bled. You actually just have to mess with the slave cylinder, while obviously leaving the master cylinder, the reservoir, open. But with fluid. You gotta have fluid. figured out. So what you want to do is basically you fill the slave cylinder up, right? You gravity bleed the line. To get any air out of the master cylinder, if there's any air in it, is just pump it a ton. Like just absolutely pump it, like whatever. Without like bleeding this thing. Don't worry about this thing. If your pedal has no pressure, just like pump it a ton. Like try to work to like whatever, back and forth, just a bunch. You won't really get much feedback out of it even after you pump it a bunch, but you just want to make sure that like there's no possibility of there being air in there. So then what you do is you gravity bleed the line like I was doing so that there's no air bubbles. Once you do that, once you have a few master cylinders through it full of brake fluid, go ahead and close it off, and then what you do from there is what I was doing with compressing this guy. You compress this, it works any last bubbles left in this guy completely out, and you just keep doing that. Just keep working that quite a bit. I've been working it. It's bled pretty good. And what'll happen after you work it is you will compress it, and then you'll go up top, and the first pump, the pedal will go to the floor. When you let it back up, then it has pressure. Alright, so I got everything put back in. The clutch pedal feels like a clutch pedal should. Everything seems to be working the way that it needs to. So pulled all my tools and junk out. I'm going to pull this out. We're going to go for a test trip. I'm not going to try to record any of it because that side of my exhaust broke off. So for anything to even be audible inside the cab, like I got to get that fixed. But once I get that fixed, then I'll do an actual video taking it for a cruise. Alright, so I couldn't not throw my excitement on the end. Like, I am so hype right now, dude. My legs are fucking weak, the whole 9 yards. Like, I am so fucking excited. Dude, I just can't, like, I gotta get the exhaust fixed, and then I'm gonna be able to drive this thing literally every day. Like, I'm so excited. The thing fucking rips, no lack of, like, anything. It gets, dude. It's ridiculous. I am so happy. Holy shit, that swap was like 100% worth it. Like, even as long as it took, like, all of the fucking hiccups and shit, like, 100% not disappointed whatsoever. I gotta get the exhaust fixed, and I think I'm 100% gonna push to try to get that done tonight, because I want to be able to rip this thing to work tomorrow, and just, I can't, like, it's such a good feeling. Like, I am so excited that this is finally fucking done. It's so much fun. I can't, like, put into words just how happy I am with it. Like, it's, whoo boy. I fucking love it. But yeah, I just had to throw a little bit of my excitement on at the end. 100% would advise the swap. Just keep in mind that, like, it's gonna be a manual, obviously. You have all the manual things that you gotta do, and, like, you know, all that shit now. So the driving experience is definitely different. But the other thing, what the fuck was I gonna say? Oh, keep in mind all of the problems and shit that I have, because, like, if like, anything you take away from this video, like, at least know that, like, you do this, like, these are the problems that I encountered. So, like, absolutely, like, keep those in mind. Like, take that with, like, I don't know how I want to put that, how I want to word that right now. I can't, like, I can barely fucking think straight right now. I'm so excited. This is sick. But yeah, let my problems guide you in the right direction. Don't make the same mistakes I did. Like, have that shit all ready to go. And, like, this should have been a weekend thing, and it was not. I think we're a little bit over a month, actually, by this point in time. So I'm just finally excited that, like, I just got to get the exhaust done, and I'm gonna have my truck back. I'm gonna have my own vehicle running and driving again, and, like, yeah, I'm ecstatic. It's, whew, if you couldn't tell, I'm a little bit happy. But yeah, this, I'm super hype. I'm not disappointed in the slightest with it. So yeah, guys, if you're doing this swap, absolutely let me know. make videos, do whatever. Like, if you're going on Instagram, like, whatever, posting it, if I helped you out with this, absolutely tag me. I want to see this shit. I want to see them all. Don't care what it is. I might care a little bit if it's squatted. That's kind of gross. But, like, all the rest of it, like, I want to see it. Tag me in it. Comment. Tell me you did it. Tell me my video helped you guys out. Spread the love, you know? Like, let me know that, like, this is worth something for somebody. It helped somebody do something. It would like make this whole experience even better. So yeah, I appreciate you guys if you watched all of this. I mean, if you didn't, also cool. It was a long series, no doubt. I haven't even like begun editing it, and I know it's already gonna be like 4 parts, just long, drawn out. So, but yeah, anyhow, guys, I think I'm gonna leave it now. So yeah, good luck wrenching, y'all.